Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another week of intense racing action in the one and only official iRacing series known as the GTE Sprint Series by CONSPIT, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, that is iRacing. Today we have made our way into week number 9. After what's a slightly delayed broadcast for week number 8 at Road Atlanta, we've remained in the United States of America. However, we've exchanged what is Road Atlanta for a circuit that's much further along onto the western coast, and we are here in the US state of California for the one and only WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca. A circuit most synonymous, in fact, with its Corkscrew chicane, an absolutely enthralling 18-metre plummet from apex to apex. Well, beyond just the Corkscrew is a circuit that is all about technical ability. With a wide variety of corners, 11 corners in total, the majority being medium speed and low speed apexes, it is a circuit that is lacking in straights but made up for the fact that there are plenty of heavy braking zones and there are plenty of opportunities for drivers to get it absolutely right and roar off onto the route to victory, or to make small mistakes, and that could open up overtaking opportunities. But as all our drivers get ready to go racing today, with qualifying currently happening in the background, we welcome you to this Valentine's Day broadcast. And for those of you tuning in, well, you may perhaps be a little bit lonely today, or perhaps having a bit of a breather from the girlfriend, the wife, or the partner, but either way, we're very happy to share the love here in the GT series, and very happy to have you tuning in with us. And this broadcast being brought to you live from circuit side, this top split broadcast for week number 9 of the 2025 Season 1 calendar, being brought to you on YouTube at TX141TX, also the channel known as Paul Walsh, Beware My Manners. Allow me to introduce myself as your host and commentator for today. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I will bring you all of your racing action. In terms of our action, our schedule for today, we can see the times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC, and in just under 3 minutes time, we'll be very likely making our way to the grid for our 45-minute feature race. As always, at 10 past 7, we're covering the top split session from what is the 1900 GMT or UTC slot this fine Friday evening. And well, let's give you a quick recap of the calendar and what we've still got lying in wait over the remaining weeks, because we are in week number 9 and we have made our way, stayed in the United States of America, but from Road Atlanta to the WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca. And after today, it's going back and forth at charge to Italy, then the United States. Well, week number 10 seeing us make our way to Imola at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edina Ferrari. Then our penultimate week, it'll be the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle, after which we're making our way back to Italy for the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, where the legacy of Turn 1, Lap 1 at Monza will definitely be in the hearts and memories of our drivers as they wrap up the 2025 Season 1 schedule. But as we come into today, a quick reminder on our circuit. Well, of course, it is the one and only circuit located in Monterey County, between the towns of Monterey and Salinas, and it's in its own unique spot in the US state of California. As our drivers get ready to go racing today, well, a two-dimensional circuit map, of course, provides plenty of information when it comes to what is the corners out there. 11 corners, many of them household names in the local vicinity and the US, ranging all the way from the Andretti hairpin at turn number 2, all the way through to Rainey at turn number 9. But the one thing this map doesn't show is the vast variety of elevation changes overlap and the wide variety of corners which have plenty of camber ushered into them. And it means it's a circuit where you really need to be brave and maximise the use of downforce in order to get the most out of it. There's going to be maximum rear wing here, or at least a high amount of rear wing and downforce on the cars in order to get the best possible lap speeds. There are very little straights to talk about other than what is the start-finish straight coming out of turn 11 down towards Andretti at turn number 2, and a prime overtaking opportunity there. But as we get set, a quick reminder on the rules. Setup-wise, our drivers are limited to 50% in terms of their fuel tanks, but everything else is up to them in terms of their setup. Race-wise, the grid shall be set by the closed qualifying session that's currently wrapping up, and the race shall commence via a rolling start. Drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 16 or more instant points, and on 25 or more instant points, they'll be disqualified from the race. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're here to go racing, and well, let's head back to circuit side. Our drivers are just wrapping up when it's their final qualifying laps here, including Sam Benson. The first time we've seen him in the top split this season, at least in the broadcasted top split, and as he makes his way on through turn number 3, well, his qualifying session comes to a close, as it does for everybody, because everyone's been able to get their 2 allotted laps in, and that does mean, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to make our way to the grid. And well, in the strength of field of 2,763, let's see how they all line up for today's premier race. And as we can see, taking pole position, carrying on from where he left off with an absolutely brilliant result at Road Atlanta, it's Matt Kendall. The Briton there will be running the BMW M8 GTE today, and he'll be joined on the front row of the grid by Casper Juncker for Bayer Simsport. We then have on row number 2 Sergei Asash, and then Drew Boyer, followed up by Jose Cazon and Jordan Chamberlain. And then we do have on row number 4, starting P7, Tom Vanderberg, ahead of Gorkan Avzici. And then we do have, wrapping up the top 10, the pairing of Tom Canning in P9 and Jonathan Palfreman turn in P10. The Canadian driver not having the best of qualifying sessions and looking to make a little bit more progress in the race. Starting P11, it's Ricardo M. Cardoso ahead of Adam Sachs, and that is going to be your 6th row of the grid. And on the final 2 rows of the grid, only what is 16 cars in this lobby for today. We do have Sam Benson ahead of Anna Thomas, and then Patrick Gilmore line up P15 ahead of Pablo Pardinez, who complete your running order. 16 drivers here, almost all set on the grid, and a wide variety of cars as well. Indeed, plenty of car variety, and perhaps the most notable thing here today is the variety we do have as our drivers get themselves into position, in the fact that we do have quite a few BMW M8s. We've also got a couple of Porsches out there, one Ferrari in the form of Tom Canning. We also do have a couple of Ford GTs. In fact, the one Ford GT, Adam Sachs is bringing that, and we've got 2 Corvettes as well. But it has been a week dominated by the BMW M8 and also to a lesser extent the Ford GT, but the BMW does seem to be the one to pick around here for Laguna Seca. Remember, from week to week, our drivers are permitted to choose a car. As long as they've got it on their iRacing account, they can choose any of the 5 GTE machines for races in order to go racing. They're not locked in at all. It's not as though if you pick a car at the beginning of the season, that's the car you have to roll with. And indeed, from race to race and day to day, you can change even from hour to hour. And therefore, that's where you're going to see a number of drivers who do return over the course of what is the 2025 schedules, where you'll see them returning in different machinery, and they'll be trying to get the most out of it, because of course there are official championships ongoing in the background, and you're getting points for every point you put in, and those points will go to your final divisional season standings. But as Matt Kendall pulls away off the line behind the pace car, it's going to be a full formation lap around here. Well, let's talk a little bit about what to expect. As we mentioned earlier, this is a high downforce circuit. It is a circuit where you need to make the most out of your corner apex speed as humanly possible. You've got plenty of late apexes around here, and as you may notice looking at this image and a wonderful camera shot there showing you all the drivers coming down towards the Andretti hairpin at turn number 2, it's also a relatively narrow circuit. It does mean that overtaking can prove incredibly tricky here, and you wouldn't normally see GT Endurance or GTE cars racing around the Laguna Seca circuit. Indeed, they'd be normally made to race around a bit wider circuits and longer circuits, such as the likes of Watkins Glen all the way over on the east coast of the United States of America, in the state of New York. We're of course here on the west coast in where is California. But the thing is as well, with the width of these cars and the width of the circuit, it does mean it's quite tricky to overtake it. Even in MX5 racing or cup level racing, more domestic style racing, overtaking can be very difficult here, and it normally comes about as a result of goading your rival into a mistake. And it's very easy to make mistakes around here as well. And the fact you'll notice there's very few runoff areas, and if you do run wide, you very quickly end up dipping a wheel onto the gravel or to the grass. And well, there's not too much grass here, given the fact it does look a lot like sand, but I can promise you one of the biggest misconceptions about this circuit is that it's surrounded by barren grass or barren land. In fact, if you do venture out there during the spring and the winter seasons, you'll find actually that shade of brown is much more green, and the grass does grow, but it does go quite quickly given the heat of the Californian sun and the fact that this circuit is effectively right in the middle of a desert, if my memory serves me correctly. But as our drivers make the way on around here and heading on through, in terms of the pole time, can we get the statistics for you there, Matt Broom? I don't think we can get those pole time statistics anymore for you, I'm afraid, so therefore we're not going to be able to walk you through that, and we'll have to try and catch that a little bit later on. As the drivers make the way around here, we're not too far away now from going into where's our first lap of racing. Of course, it'll be Mr. Kendall to take us away for that open lap as they head in towards what will be at that final braking zone. As they come on down here, the safety car peels away, and it's to Matt Kendall to take us away for 45 minutes of racing. As he makes way out the final corner, he immediately goes for it there. Well, no surprises. It's the best way to get a good start. And we are racing for week number 9 at Laguna Seca as Matt Kendall gets a brilliant run off the line. Sergei Garcia-Azaj behind, however, already under a bit of pressure. And Kasper Juncker looking up the inside. You can see in P4 there, we've got Kazan trying to make some progress as Juncker goes very, very deep. And in fact, that's Azaj who goes deep. And Juncker's going to try and go around the outside in the Porsche 911 as they roll them through. But here comes Kazan. Now looking for the move into turn number 3. Can't quite find it yet, but he's going to get a bit of a better run there, as it does look as though Juncker getting a poor run, and as they roar the way, oh goodness me, contact there between Zazash and Kazan, and with that, that's not Kazan who's made the contact. In fact, yes it is. I'll correct myself backwards for a second time, and that front bumper hanging off the front end of that Corvette now as they roar the way on through turn number 5 and up towards 6, but Kendall's been able to steer clear of the danger and run away. But here comes all the field trying to peel its way on through. Tom Canning as well looking up the inside there, but being squeezed. There's oh goodness me, a spin there for Kazan. It's disaster as they head up the rise, and well, Kazan's going to roll back across the circuit, won't catch him. him, as now it's too wide into the Corkscrew, and that's going to be Avicii ahead of Boyer, but it's a mistake there from Avicii, and the car slides sideways as everyone takes evasive action. He pulls onto the gravel there, and will it's drama in the open lap at Laguna Seca as the whole field comes on for an Adam Sachs, who's backed off as much as humanly possible. Well, as he comes on down through Rainy Curve, he's now going to be absolutely pleased with the fact that he didn't end up getting caught by that, but goodness me, what a dramatic open lap, and I think we're going to have to get a few replays now in order to dissect exactly what happened. But meanwhile, after all the drama of lap number 1, well, Kendall's looking behind and probably thinking, well, where's everybody gone? Because he's 3.5 seconds clear. John Chamberlain's in P2 ahead of Casper Juncker in P3, and Chamberlain right now capitalising on all the chaos of the open lap, and Casper Juncker would imagine he'll feel a little bit aggrieved in the fact that when he made his way into P2, it all went wrong, and now he's got it all to do from P3 once again. But Chamberlain into P2, Juncker in P3, then we've got Canning in P4. He's had a brilliant start, 5 places gained since the start of this race, absolutely flying, and so we can show you the gains of our drivers there on the top left corner of your screen in terms of that time and towels. They make the way down towards turn number 5 once again. Drew Boyer as well in P5, head of Jonathan Palferman in P6, and then we do have none other than Ricardo M. Cardoso in P7 ahead of Sergei Garcia-Azash, and then we do have wrapping up the top 10 Sam Benson and Pablo Padinez, and Padinez, who started last of our runners, P16, he's already up into P10 avoiding the drama, and well in the pit lane. As I look at my contact booth window, we do have Avicii and also what is Thomas. They're both parked up as our drivers now start to settle down into some sense of rhythm, but goodness me, you wouldn't have thought there was going to be a rhythm in the early stages given what happened. But speaking of what happened, well, let's take a look back at what was that race start very shortly, and I do believe, in fact, we do have a replay coming up, but before we do, we've got a bit of pressure building for Tom Canning as he makes his way out the final corner, looking back from the rear of the Ferrari 488 GTE, and as he roars his way up towards turn number 1 and then 2, the kink of 1 awaits him. Well, as he comes on down the hill, into the braking zone he goes, and that Ferrari very quick off the blocks there, coming out of turn 11, but I would imagine that Boyer might be taking it a little bit more carefully in these early stages, still trying to get the tyres up to temperature, and he doesn't want to push them too soon, given the fact that if he pushes them too hard early on, and he's got to try and find a way to claw them back into their natural operating window. And I can tell you one thing, clawing the tyres back, once you've taken a lot of life out of them or got them overheated, is much harder said than done as they head onwards towards turn number 5, and this battle does take a bit of a brief breather. But as we look back, there's Pablo Padinez chasing after Benson. Benson, the Hatsune Miku BMW M8, the Vocaloid livery there on the machine, and will that be popularised by Good Smile Racing on the Mercedes GT3 in what is the Asian GT World Challenge circuit. But as our drivers make the way on through the Hatsune Miku livery, living on a lot of different cars on the iRacing service, I can tell you that's some very talented livery creators out there, and all these liveries being downloaded from Trading Paint. But the drivers come on down here and roaring way through. A big slide there from Padinez on the direction transfer in that Porsche 911, and well, having to get the car back together. Meanwhile, we saw them getting close to the previous lap, but it's going to be a move here from Boyer up the inside of Canning, and Boyer just about gets it stopped in time, and the BMW M8 driver moves up another place. Now into P4 is Drew Boyer as they head on to the next lap, but here comes Canning back, and look at the speed from that Ferrari coming off of turn 11. I'm not quite sure what he's had for breakfast, Canning, but I can tell you one thing, that Ferrari is absolutely firing all cylinders in the acceleration zones, and Boyer, by comparison, seems to be just a little bit lethargic in a BMW. We know he's got a lot of grunt on the straights, but when it comes to these acceleration zones, that Ferrari is something else as they roar the way out of turn number 3 and in towards 4, and well, the balance of performance here really favouring the Ferrari for those quick fire acceleration zones, but the BMW seems to be more stable over the distance as they come in towards turn 5, and Boyer can finally settle into some sense of rhythm, or he'll be hoping to, and he'll want to be able to start to put a bit of distance between himself and Canning, because Canning's looking very ferocious out of the low speed corners. But into turn 6 they're going up the Rahul straight and up the rise towards the Corkscrew, and let's take a look back at that opening lap. This was right back towards the start, and well, we need to take a look back in particular what happened to Jose Manuel Cazon as he had a brilliant start initially. So this was the green flag procedure, battling initially there with Boyer, who tried to look around the outside. You'll see Juncker in the foreground there in the Porsche looking for the move, as there was a big moment there of outbraking from our P2 starter. They made the way on through. That was the number 13 getting it all wrong, and that was Azash. And then coming in towards turn number 3, look up the inside here from Cazon, absolutely nails it, gets the power down. Azash there trying to hold onto position, and as they came through the right-hander, well, rolling on through, and in fact there, now that was a very intriguing moment. That looked as though that was netco contact, if any more than anything else. In the fact, it looked as though the cars were too far apart to actually be making contact. Well, I wonder if we can get a bit of a replay of what happened there a bit closer up, and I think we might be able to. We in fact get a quick on board. Well, this was later on in the lap, so not quite what we were able to see, and this was Cazon with the damage that he picked up from the initial tap plus cold tyres going around, and caught the car in the end, but an absolute nightmare moment. But Jose Manuel Cazon there will be frustrated with the way things played out. We're going to return to your live pictures for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and see if we can get a better perspective on that open lap incident that really caused all the sparks to fly. And in fact, we did have an incident further down the order from Tom van den Berg, and this is what happened to Van den Berg at the Andretti hairpin, and you'll see him there in what is the BMW, the number 9 BMW, so in the Walkenhorst livery, side by side into the right hand, and caught up there with the number 6 of what was Gorkanovici, and in the end the two coming together and Van den Berg going around. I don't think there was any mainstay contact, but there was a small tab, and Van den Berg on a very tight line there, just finding the car going around very quickly. And well, meanwhile, we take a look back at what happened to Sergio Garcia Azash. We're looking back from the rear of the driver's car. Was there contact? If there, yes, there was secondary contact. I think Azash lost it originally, and then as they came off the corner, I think a bit of misinterpretation from what was Cardoso, in fact from Cazon, ended up leading to that contact, and that's why the front bumper was hanging off of the Corvette. So that explains the story. The first camera angle we had suggested there was no contact. It was purely what was netcode. In fact, it was none of that at all. It was a mistake being made from Azash, and then Jose Manuel Cazon trying to come into the scene of the incident, not realising that BMW was going around, and then making the subsequent contact and sending what was the BMW of none other than Sergio Garcia Azash on his way. But we come back to live racing now, and in good time as well, because we've got a Ford GT here that's trying to make some progress. Sachs absolutely biting at the wheel here as they come in towards turn number 5 on lap number 6. We've still got plenty of time and distance to go, but immediately the field settling down as Kendall, our race leader, has disappeared off into the distance. You can see it there on the circuit map in the top right corner of your screen. The fact he's already opened up 8 seconds, and it is growing very rapidly. But speaking of something that's not growing, in fact, it's shortening very quickly. Here's the gap between Sachs and Anna Thomas behind. Thomas getting very close there in the number 12, what is the Golf liveried BMW M8. And as they come out of the Corkscrew chicane, Thomas now looking from one side to the other, but 9 going to have to back off a little bit as they come down through a rainy curve and in towards turn number 10, for the fact that if you do go off racing line coming through the Corkscrew, you lose a lot of momentum into rainy, and that subsequently adds up. And that's the thing about this circuit as well. It's a very momentum-based circuit. It's carrying a bit too much momentum there. Is Sachs, and having to let the brakes off after almost triggering a lock-up there. But you know, the fact these cars have no ABS, Sachs is not too happy about that. I think he feels as though by running so close to the back of Pablo Pardines, in the fact that he was in the end caught out by some early braking there from the Porsche driver, but the Porsche driver just taking his natural racing line. We do have a little bit of variety of what his skill levels here, given the fact we've only got one split for this 7 o'clock session this evening, and therefore that might be catching out some drivers who otherwise have perhaps been used to running in dual splits, and therefore when they've been in the top split, they've had a much tighter strength of field. But as the drivers roar the way on through, of course, that's what it's all about. You have to deal with the drivers you've got on the circuit. You can't expect everyone to follow exactly the same braking zone. They'll normally be in the same ballpark you would expect, but some drivers will approach corners slightly differently, and will now, with what is Sachs falling, we have got Thomas all over the back of Pardines. And what can Pablo do here to hold on to the Porsche? They head up the hill and in towards the Corkscrew. Looking to the inside again is Thomas. Can't quite find it. Number 16 there nails its braking zone, so tries to make the way through. A bit of a lock up there. We saw some of the brake dust coming off of Van den Berg's BMW just up the road in the number 9. So therefore this battle is settling in quite nicely and riding on board with Anna Thomas right now, as the number 12 makes his way out of turn number 10 and in towards 11. Onto the brakes here, in towards the final corner, the hairpin. And you can see there, look at the differences in line. Thomas confident to cut over the apex curve, then avoid the sausage curve, whereas Pardines going a little bit wider and just taking it a bit more cautiously as they head upwards towards what is turn number 2, or down I should say. Onto the brakes they go again, and no change between them. You'll notice that as well. A big feature of this circuit is on every apex curve you'll find a small red or slightly orange what is sausage curve, and that can very easily unsettle the car if you do put the right hand side tyres or the left hand side tyres. So one side in particular's tyres on it, but if you manage to go over it completely, it can gain you some race time. You may get a black flag if you cut it too much, and you're going to have to serve that as an automated slowdown or be at risk of a drive-through penalty. But right now Anna Thomas finding the right way to cut over those sausage curves when needed. Get a better run there, really biting the car in to turn number 5. This is going to be a good run for the BMW driver. Do they force the issue into turn 6? They're going to go for it here. It's going to be a bold move, and well, Anna Thomas absolutely gets it done. That's a brilliant move up the inside, and Pablo Pardines in the end knowing it was only going to go one way, and it was going to go the way of the number 12 as they make the way in towards the Corkscrew. But coming from outside the top 10 then to back towards the front of the field, this is the battle for P2. Casper Juncker in the black Porsche versus what is the dark blue and white BMW M8 as they head in towards turn number 2, and as they come down in towards the braking zone, and rolling through the left-hander. Well, coming on out there. And thank you for clarifying, Matt Broom. I think my iRacing client hadn't refreshed as quickly as I was perhaps expected to tell me that there was 2 splits in the end, and I do apologise for the misinformation there. On my screen I did only have 1 split, but perhaps the top split had loaded just that tiny bit before I'd seen the second split come up. But it does mean that's why we've got 16 drivers. So I was wondering, I did see 30 drivers queued up, but in the end it did just split into the 2. So I appreciate the insights there. And well, of course, ladies and gentlemen, if any of you tuning in right now, you've got any insights that you've noticed that we haven't here in the commentary booth, feel free to always point them out, because this is a community broadcast, and at the end of the day we're all part of the big happy GTE family. But as Juncker makes his way up the hill in towards what is turn number 8 once again, coming into the braking zone, well, Drew Boyer is right there, getting nice and close, but can't find a way through at the moment. And this is your door number 2 at Porsche, trying to hold on, and well, keeping in mind the fact that that pressure is only going to build more and more as these laps continue to trickle on. And what we have seen in previous weeks, that this Porsche has been a very strong contender at most circuits, but doesn't seem to be in the happiest of places at Laguna Seca, which is a little bit bemusing when you would think that the Porsche, arguably a manufacturer that's all about taking corners as rapidly as possible. Indeed, all manufacturers are with their race cars, but Porsche really being the artiste of the rear-engine, rear-wheel drive machine. Albeit this Porsche 911 RSR being the exception to the rule, with the engine mounted a little bit close towards the driver in a mid-engine rear-wheel drive configuration. The only racing Porsche in recent history that's done that. I do believe that's a little bit of trivia that you can use at the table at a pub quiz. Well, as he makes his way on through turn number 3, it does mean that this car, as a result, will not quite have as much rotation as its other Porsche brethren, but the key point being here is it should still have plenty of rotation, whereas the front-engine rear-wheel drive BMW M8 with the engine mounted over that front axle just around it, well, you would expect it not to be as strong in the corners, but it does seem as though that BMW absolutely flying at the moment. But the problem is, Boyer can get close, but what does he do at this point onwards? And that is the hardest part and the biggest question he's got to answer, and he heads up the rise in towards turn number 8. He's getting very close again, a really good run off of turn 6, but the problem is he's just not close enough to really force the door open, and that's the final 5% he needs. Albeit I say that, he gets a very good run off of what is the corkscrew down into Rainy. Juncker sees it coming and just opens up the corner enough to give himself breathing room, but not enough in order to give Boyer the confidence to tack up the inside. So these two right now absolutely running back and forth here, and I think for Casper Juncker, he's trying to think, what else can I do, because this BMW is getting so large in my rear view mirrors. And well, that's the rear view of what is Drew Boyer, but you look to Casper Juncker meanwhile, and you can see that he's got a face full of BMW as they come over the crest, down through 1, in towards 2, in towards Andretti. But the one thing Juncker does have, and you can notice it there, is the better brakes. That's the one thing that has remained consistent in the balance performance over the last couple of seasons. The Porsche has got a much stronger set of brakes compared to what is that BMW M8, and the M8 just doesn't quite have the leverage. But here we go, that small mistake from Juncker coming out of turn number 3 into towards 4. He ran slightly wide, and Boyer thought about it. He thought about sticking his nose in, but showing great respect there for his rival and backing off once again. But really right now trying to tease out just a tiny error, and Casper Juncker under a lot of pressure. Another slide there coming through turn number 5, and Drew Boyer right now just watching this, rubbing his hands together, albeit you'll need both of the steering wheels, so it's a metaphor at most, but he's thinking to himself right now, I've got him where I want him. And as they come up the rise here, up Rahul in towards the corkscrew, not looking this time, but thinking about the outside there, making Juncker wonder where that move's going to come from. As Juncker, you can see that misses the exit apex of the corkscrew, and that's only going to compromise his line a little bit more. And every time he's having to defend or run offline, he's also heating those tyres up more, and particularly those rear tyres, they get so sensitive to temperature as time goes on. And now Drew Boyer absolutely looking to sink his teeth in as they come out of the final quarter. You can see there up the road, that is not your race leader. That in fact is your P16 car of Gurken Avicii, and well, Gurken having a difficult start to the race and therefore looking to recover from it. You never know what can happen over distance, but being plenty of laps down at this point, and I think just trying to get the car home and taking the mantra of it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, which is what we always love to see. But we must remember there are other battles in the circuit. In fact, we've had a bit of drama further down the order quite recently, and well, as we see some battling here, this Ricardo M. Cardoso in the Corvette C8R just getting ahead of Patrick Gilmore in recent laps, and Adam Sachs on the back of this. And we can get a replay firstly of what happened between these drivers, and then what's happened to Tom Vandenberg, who has in fact been involved in an incident that's pushed him down the order, as Cardoso has some connectivity issues there, it would seem, and that's where you see him jump up and down the standings every so often. But here is the replay that was made by Cardoso only moments ago. In fact, this was Cardoso coming out of the corkscrew, so getting a good run, then briefly disappearing from what is the surface and re-materializing from the ether. So there's a little bit of confusion as to when the overtakers happen. But one thing we don't have confusion about is what happened to Tom Vandenberg as he made his way up the right straight in towards the corkscrew. Takes a little bit of grass there onto the brakes. Big lock-up, and the rear letting go there. And you could see the rear brakes releasing before the front brakes. He'd locked up, and the rear brakes were coming back alive and releasing themselves, whereas the fronts were completely locked, and that kicking the car around immediately. And that would suggest a lot of rearward brake bias in that BMW. And, well, in the end, a nightmare moment for Tom Vandenberg, and losing 2 places as a result of it as we come back to your live racing. But as our drivers make the way on around, well, Cardoso being closed up to there by Gilmore and Sachs. And Sachs now looking for a move. And remember, it was a 1-2 for Ford at Road Atlanta on Monday at what was an absolutely brilliant round of racing. But now Ford already up against it here, being solely represented by Sachs, who gets up the inside there. Big error from Gilmore, goes deep. And I think perhaps also Patrick Gilmore thinking about the bigger picture, which is I can't find a way past that Corvette, so let me give it to somebody else to be a problem. And that is something you can do given the length of the race here. And you might be thinking, well, surely as a racing driver you want to be the lead car in any given battle. Well, yes, simply because if you're leading at the end of it, you win or you finish higher. But the idea is if you can't pass the guy in front of you and you've got a rival right behind, and you think you can get your rival behind to put more pressure on the guy in front, sometimes it works out. But it hasn't worked out here for what is Gilmore, in the fact that he's lost out there with Sachs going deep at turn number 5 and having to regain, and Sachs losing 4 attempts on the run out of turn 5 in towards 6 versus Cardoso, so therefore going a little bit backwards. Meanwhile, appeal to the pits from Tom Canning. Canning into the pit lane now. Is this an early pit stop on the strategy window? We are only 17 minutes in, and as he makes his way down the sole Ferrari, Canning was going very happily in what was P4 before we've come to him, so therefore I get the feeling this is an early pit stop and he's going to try and give himself some clear air. Now, by the time he gets out the pit lane, and we do a little bit of prediction based on our circuit map, we reckon that Canning would come out in what would be somewhere between P12 and P13. He should just about come out clear of what is the running drivers of P13, P14. So therefore Canning may feel quite comfortable there in taking this pit stop early. In fact, we've got quite a few drivers now ducking into the pits who are running further down. Sachs is in, also Jose Manuel Carzon. So therefore it does seem as though a number of drivers here opting to get their pit stop done early, give themselves some clear track as Sachs is starting to leave the pit lane now. In fact, Canning's still in the pit lane. Is Canning having tyres put on? Well, I can't quite see at the moment. In fact, can we have another look down there? Yes, he is. Canning's having tyres put on. That's going to take an eternity, that pit stop, because I do believe, unlike the GT3s on the service, it's one tyre that's changed at a time here. So for Canning, that is going to take a long time, and that's cost him a huge amount of time, as Cazon has already made his way the pit. Well, it's starting to make his way out the pit lane as well. So Tom Canning has lost out massively in the pits. That's going to have cost him at least an extra 20 seconds, and that's going to put him very far back in his running order. But perhaps he's banking on the fact with fresh tyres in that Ferrari, he can really go on the offensive. We know the Ferrari doesn't like to manage its tyres very well, but meanwhile, speaking of managing things, here's a managed battle between Casper Juncker and Drew Boyer, and well, this battle has been going back and forth for some time. It's enabled Matt Kendall to run off into the distance, and Kendall right now is what is 15 seconds away or thereabouts. And well, it's crazy to think that after taking pole position, he was able to absolutely dart away with it, and well, he hasn't looked back since. But speaking of drivers who are still not looking back, well, Casper Juncker won't be wanting to look back too often because of the fear that he'll be having coming from behind. But meanwhile, as we ride on board here, the dashboard of your P3 driver in the number 5 of Boyer as he heads in towards turn number 6. We're coming through the left-hander and getting close as the sparks fly. A bit of a mistake from Juncker. Surely Boyer has got to think about it this time. He's looking up the inside, but there's a bit of traffic ahead. Will that play a role? Well, he's going to go for it here, all on the inside of the corkscrew, on the brakes, just missing out by about 5 metres. And in the end, Drew Boyer, he's got the speed, he's got the confidence, but he hasn't got the brakes in that BMW. And Juncker is holding on for dear life here as he slides. It's a big slide coming through turn number 10. And Boyer's thinking right now, I've got him. If only I could be close enough here into these braking zones. And that's the one thing that's keeping Casper Juncker alive. And I can tell you that Porsche driver right now will be absolutely clutching at the steering wheel and thinking, what else can I do? Because at this point, he's been put under so much pressure as in front, he's got a bit of traffic. That's Canning down in P15, who's recently had his pit stop. So for Canning, you would expect that given the tyres that have gone on, once he's got them up to temperature at the end of their second lap, he should be able to pull away from this battle, but if not, and if these two catch up, then it might be an opportunity for Boyer or Juncker to find a way to use Canning as a tool in order to either end the battle from the perspective of Juncker, alternatively, it calls the battle to come to its climax if you're Boyer. But as they come in towards turn number 5, no such at the moment. But meanwhile, we do have a quick replay as to something that's happened to Patrick Gilmore only moments ago, and this was on lap number 14, coming into what was turn number 10, and number 14. Oh, goodness me, a big skip over the sausage curve there, but doesn't upset the car. Then onto the brakes here, into the hairpin, and just gets it a little bit too aggressive on the downshift and rotation. And the 14 driver loses the rear end. He gets it pointed back in the right direction immediately. That's some good car control, but just a small amount of error there, and a big moment as a result. But as we return to the live racing pictures, no place is lost there for what was Gilmore, but some time lost given the fact that Pardine has made his way into the pit lane. That could be something to keep our eyes out for a bit later, given the fact that he's yet to take a pit stop, whereas Gilmore. Meanwhile, Pardine has served his pit stop in his back out in P13, and that gives you an idea of just how much damage has been done to Canning's race, given the delta. But as the drivers head up the hill in towards turns 1 and 2, back on these live screens, let's look back to your race leader here as he heads towards the halfway point. And well, what a lonely lead this is if your name's Matt Kendall, but to be fair, I don't think he's going to complain too much at this, given the fact that last time out Road Atlanta, he was actually having pressure breathed onto him in the battle of the two Matts versus Matt Wood. But today, he's absolutely just running away with this right now, and 16 seconds is the growing gap between him and the rest of the field. And well, you know where P2 and P3 are. Let's take a look at P4. This is Sergey Garcia Azash, yet to take a pit stop, and well, we thought he might be battling with Tom Canning, but given Canning has taken all 4 tyres changed in the pits, therefore it might be looking as though right now this is your new P4 man. And well, Jonathan Palfreman behind in what is that lovely livery, I must say, that aqua blue Porsche with the white frontage. Well, he's trying to chase down Wes Azash, but there's a 4-second gap between the two of them, and he's got a little bit of traffic in front of him, and that being the P16 car of Vici, who is 8 laps down the leader. And as he comes in towards the Corkscrew chicane, right now Palfreman is just keeping his head down, because Anna Thomas, who started all the way back in P14, really has challenged Trent. Perhaps has been the biggest gainer of this entire race so far, and has not shown any fear in committing to battles in that BMW N8. It's absolutely been fantastic to see Thomas make the progress. And well, how far can Anna go before this race is done? Well, meanwhile, we must come back to the battle for P2, because this is the closest they've been. It's a 10th coming through turn 1, and well, Juncker again just out braking. Boy, there, you couldn't ask him to get any closer if he tried. And this is looking back from the rear of the P2 machine right now. He's literally where he started this race, albeit he's a bit closer to the BMW than where they started in that rolling start. And as they head in towards turn number 4, well, right now Juncker's got to be thinking, okay, when do I pit? And well, if you're Drew Boyer at this point, one thing you can think about is surely you've got to be thinking about the undercut, because arguably, given how close he's been getting to Juncker over the last few laps, you would imagine that in clear air Boyer might be the faster driver. So if you are that BMW driver, would you not consider potentially pitting soon? But I think he's also worried, what if he comes out in packed traffic and that costs him the opportunity of doing the undercut? So right now, this is a battle that may be settled just as much on the circuit as it will be on strategy, but neither driver wants to risk pitting because they're worried about where they'll fit in. And keeping in mind that they are currently, if you put it in the minds of where's P10, they are 34 seconds ahead of P10. They could fall into the clutches of the bottom end of the pack. And I agree with you there, Matt Broom, in the YouTube chat. This is going to come down to the pit stop between these two if we don't see a move happen on circuit. But again, Juncker there, not quite able to get the run out of turn 11. Meanwhile, Boyer absolutely clinical in that run. And as they head up the rise onto a 19th tour of the circuit under race conditions, well, Juncker's engine screaming there, the 6 cylinders roaring for the German mark, but it's the rival German mark here that seems to be right in the zone with twin turbo V8. And as they head in towards turn number 3, will they stay locked in, horns together, looking meanwhile back to Anna Thomas. And there's a big slide there for Adichie, who's a multiple laps down, and then it gets it back together. Andretti just in time. Well, no change there. But Thomas, I think, having a big moment of wondering, is this going to be the end of the race in terms of closing up to the back of Palfreman? But not so. And the number 12 makes its way out to turn number 5. Well, out to turn number 4, I should say, in towards 5. 9 there's an opportunity just on the horizon, and then get a little bit closer. But coming out of that corner, and speaking of getting closer, well, Juncker this time back to the battle for P2. And that's a good defensive, and here comes Boyer. Boyer. It's going to go around the outside. Can he get it down the corkscrew? It's too wide on the downhill, but Young's down the inside. He's not going to give up. He has to put two wheels to the grass for a brief moment. Through Rainey they go, and Drew Boyer throws everything at it, but Casper Juncker says, no, you're not passing. And as they head out to turn number 10, Boyer immediately says, right, if I can't get it done on the circuit, this is going to be done on the pitch, because he's had enough. He threw everything at that, and he's decided now he's got to cool it down. And I think Drew Boyer there went all for a Hail Mary, and in the end deciding it's not enough. But meanwhile, a move up the inside there by Anna Thomas on Power for Man for P5, at least on circuit, not quite on strategy potentially, but here comes Power for Man looking for the move in return now on the counter-attack over the rise of one in towards two. As coming up the pit lane is Gilmore, and well, they won't have a playing role in this. As you can see, going defence there's Thomas, but Powerman looking for the cutback for Andretti, can't quite find it, and through the left-hander they go, and up towards turn number 3 into the right-hander, and Anna Thomas finally gets this locked down and makes P4 a reality. But I think we should take a look back there at how that move was made, and here's the quick replay. And where it all came down to the run out of turn number 10, and a bit of a sideways wobble there for Jonathan Palfreman, interestingly. The car not settling down the exit of turn number 10, and Thomas just absolutely seizing the opportunity to be out the inside. And here you can see the better grunt on the straight of the BMW versus the Porsche. Palfreman gets close, but by then Thomas has already covered off the inside into turns 1 and 2, and now really preying on a mistake from Thomas under braking. And well, Thomas gets it absolutely nailed on, makes a nice tight U-shaped pair of apexes, and that was the move made by Anna Thomas for P4. We're coming back to your live racing now, and well, we've still got half the race distance to go, plus also, excuse me, what will be the final lap when we do see that, what is that white flag? And well, the checker flag will feel like it's a long way away, but here is Drew Boyer, the driver who pitted in that battle for P2 versus Casper Juncker. And look at this, he's found traffic, he's flashes lights, he's not happy at all. He wants the traffic out the way. That's Tom Vandenberg, a driver who is on the lead lap with Boyer, but the thing is Vandenberg has yet to pit, and Boyer now sees the BMW step aside. But the problem is, has that cost him the time he needs? Has it cost him the opportunity to absolutely attack on this out lap? And our gut feeling says it may not have cost him too much, but every 10th, every 100th and every 1000th could be the difference. We haven't seen Casper Juncker come into the pits yet, so the Porsche driver staying out there trying to deliver the laps time and time again. It is getting incredibly fine in terms of when that pit stop's going to happen. We normally do see those who stay out for the longest will go all the way up to about 30 minutes of racing completed, depending on the circuit and how long the fuel tank lasts for. Not all circuits are equal, of course, in terms of their fuel usage. And Tom Vandenberg, meanwhile, leaves the pit lane, but as he makes way out, now he's got a car topped up with fuel. No tyre changes there. Tyre changes not worth the while, typically, given the fact that the length of the race and tyre degradation is something you have to manage over 45 minutes. The tyres can normally last the best part of an hour. Well, as he makes his way out of the pit lane, that is going to be a fullback to P10. The car making its way around him is the race leader of Kendall. And well, elsewhere, Sergei Garcia-Azaj now coming into the pit lane from what was P3, but we do believe Azaj battling for what will be around somewhere in the top 10, probably about P7, P8 if our guess is correct, as Jonathan Palfreman comes on in, and well, Anna Thomas meanwhile carries on down the hill. And Thomas here, well, Thomas is listed as having a pit stop already, but something tells me that Thomas may be due a pit stop unless I'm very much mistaken. Having started from towards the back of the field, I think that might be a little bit erroneous given the fact we have not seen Thomas come into the pit lane so far. So therefore, don't quote us on the fact that we do have something on our off-screen time screen that says that Thomas has had a pit lane, because they were battling with Palfreman, and I think we are waiting for their pit stop. But for Garcia-Azaj, well, as he comes on down the pit lane here in towards turn number 2 in the number 13 BMW 9. The top 5 is highly possible here, but he's got to go a little bit more. Sam Benson's yet to pit, so is Casper Juncker, but he just comes out behind there, Ricardo M. Cardoso, and Cardoso, who rematerializes from the ether there very quickly, with the Corvette C8R driver in the very definitive and notable livery there. It does feel like almost, I'm trying to think of the colours, not the Joker from Batman, I'm thinking of the Riddler colours, albeit that might be a bit of an insult to livery, but it's not meant to be, and the fact it's very definitely distinctive in that combination of what is that lime greeny yellow colour versus what the purple pink offset, and it definitely does work in catching an eye. But as drivers head on through, we do have pit stops, and that is your race leader into the pit lane, albeit he's obscured by the hill, and in fact he leaves his pit box now as he heads on up the rise, and Kendall comes in for what will be a clockwork pit stop. No, and he doesn't have any pressure on him. He came into the pit lane with the best part of what was a 20-second advantage, so he could even afford, in theory, to potentially throw on a tyre change or two if he wanted to, but that that'll unbalance the grip levels of the car, so he won't do so. But Kendall having such an advantage and now just needs to bring this home. But meanwhile, what about Juncker? And here he goes, leaving the pit lane, but that is Drew Boyer. Boyer has just headed over the rise, so that's the difference there, and the undercut for Drew Boyer has made a huge advantage materialise for the BMW driver. And it essentially echoes what we were thinking earlier, the fact the amount of time he was losing being behind the Juncker versus being in clear air. And whilst he did have some difficulty in his initial outlap, since then he hasn't been disrupted, and Drew Boyer now has returned to the racing in P2, and Kasper Juncker has come out there P3. Now, one thing to note, in terms of the gap between the two drivers, it is a 2-second gap, and in terms of their pit times, the stationary times, Kasper Juncker spent an extra 1.1 seconds stationary, I think, to put in some extra fuel in the car in order to go racing. He was burning more fuel, and as he heads out of turn number 6 and up the rise towards turns 7 and 8, well, for Juncker, that extra fuel having to go in was the delta in the pit stops, and Boyer also putting in a best part of what is a second's worth of time being gained, and therefore great racing all around between these two. But we get the feeling this battle now might have gone the way of Boyer, and it may not come back unless the BMW driver makes a mistake or Juncker suddenly turns the taps up. But coming back to a driver had a lot of misfortune at this very corner on the open lap, Jose Manuel Cazon, as he chases after Adam Sachs with the Corvette C8R driver in a car that has been repaired. The front bumper's been put back on there. The engineers have done a fantastic job. We goes chasing after Sachs. They come out of turn number 5 and in towards 6, and the Ford GT driver here is trying to hold on just for a bit longer with what is 14 minutes to go. And how far can Cazon go, given the fact he started in what was P5 and had an absolutely lightning quick start compared to most drivers around him? And if only things had gone a little bit differently there at turn number 4 in that open lap, can you imagine this Corvette driver could have potentially been battling for a podium position? But still, we had to face the realities where they are, and Cazon right now on the attack as much as he possibly can all the way to the checker flag as we jump on board with the Corvette C8R driver. And well, the last GTE to ever take a victory at Le Mans in the 24 Hour of Le Mans, the GTE AM class machine, and well, as the Pratt & Miller Motorsports machine roared its way towards Le Mans, well, right now he's going to be trying to roar his way to a further place at Laguna Seca as he comes down towards the Andretti hairpin, and we can see that under braking a much more aggressive approach with the concertina effect also in application, but then Sachs getting the better run off the corner. In this Corvette, we have typically seen the Corvette be the strongest car over the race distance over the last few weeks, and the fact it just seems to have that better modulation of its tyre life compared to its rivals. But here at Laguna Seca, it does seem as though the much more narrow raceway and all of it being about the corners does seem to be a big equaliser of all machinery, because whilst Cazon can get close, with everyone running a lot of downforce, of course what that means is you're in the dirty air of a rival, and dirty air will dish out what is a lot of damage in the fact you won't be able to carry as much corner speed, and therefore you've got to scrub more life off the tyres in order to be able to find a move. And that's what he's finding here as they make the way up the hill and in towards the Corkscrew chicane. And no change. But speaking of changes, well, Anna Thomas meanwhile has found a way into P4. Has just made the way past Sergei Garcia Azash, and well, how exactly was the move made by the number 12 that continues to rise, now 10 places gained since the start? Well, here's a quick replay to explain the story. This was coming over the crest from turn 11 to turn 1, and well, in the end, Azash on the outside, and I think respecting the fact that Thomas the faster driver and decided not to defend it too hard, although perhaps giving a sign of a potential cutback there if Thomas overcooked it under braking. But I think in the end, Azash just focusing on finishing P5 in this race. Meanwhile, Thomas absolutely going full attack all the way to the end. And well, differences approaches for drivers, but to be fair, for those who might be sat there wondering right now, well, why did Azash not perhaps battle that more? Well, keep in mind, we still got 12 minutes of the race to go. Perhaps he's feeling as though, firstly, the car's not in an ideal state to battle for 12 minutes. Perhaps also he's respecting the fact that he's looked at his door number in this lobby, the number 13, and for the uninitiated, your door number in an official iRacing split lobby represents how you are rated compared to your peers. So the number 1 driver is the highest iRating driver, or the highest ranked driver, according to the official iRating ranking system, whereas 16 in this case is the lowest rated driver. So if you're the number 13 driver in a 16 car lobby and you finish P5, your iRating is going to go up significantly. You're going to be very happy with that at the end of the day, and I get the feeling that is what Azash is going for here. He just wants to get a solid result home. He's got a 5-second gap to Chamberlain, Jordan Chamberlain in what was the Porsche 911. You see him there in the rear of the picture, and Azash now focusing on making sure that this Porsche does not steal away what is a top 5 finish. But further back, we do have that growing battle between Palfreman and what is Benson. In fact, as they roar the way on through, and the Hatsune Miku machine roaring its way in towards turn number 4. And well, can he find a little bit more speed here in order to get this move done? And it does seem as though the BMW stay are really the stars that are coming alive, whether it be at the start, the midpoint, or the end of the race. But as number 15 driver here, Benson looks to go on the attack. He started today in P13. He's currently in P8, so he's gained 5 places since the very start, and he's going to be very happy with that performance. But I think he wants a little bit more. The inner racing driver in his ear saying to him, you know what, I think we can gain 1 more place before this is over. And whether he can find the time, we'll keep in mind right now, in terms of relative lap times, Benson is faster than Palfreman, Shamblin and Azash by the best part of what is a second to 2 seconds between the drivers. So therefore Benson, with the time he's got remaining and the fact that Azash is only what is 6 seconds up, in fact 8 seconds up the road, let me correct myself, if he's able to get past Palfreman quite quickly, there's no reason why he couldn't go hunting after a top 5 finish here. But of course, it's not as easy as that. Whilst the lap time around here is only 1 minute 20, if not shy of that. In fact, it's just under 1 minute 20. And that means we've got plenty of laps to go. You do some quick mathematics, and with the 10 minutes plus the final lap we've got remaining, we do have about 7 to 8 laps remaining in this race. But the problem is, when you're this close, much like we said earlier, you get the dirty off the car in front, and that is what holds you back from being able to unleash your pace. And Benson and Palfreman's pace now much more comparative to each other compared to over the previous laps, and well, we'll show you on screen exactly the lap deltas between the two of them. Here is a green moment, ladies and gentlemen. You'll see those lap times now. They've evolved. There's a big run out wide there for Benson, and well, I think they're trying to push it as much as possible, but realising that with the dirty air plus also the left-hand side tyres taking a bit of degradation, neither one of them now wanting to work as much as before. But here's the respective lap times, and you can see in the fact that if you exclude laps 22 and 23, because there we had what was the strategy, pit stop laps, well, over the last 3 laps, Palfreman really struggling, but on the end of lap 26, the gap's been equalised, and that is because Benson coming up into the dirty air, and as soon as he has, that's where it's all come apart. But as we then look up the run in order, here is Juncker, who had one BMW try to brazen making its way through him earlier, and well, that was Boy who's run off into the distance for P2, doing it on strategy just as much as on circuit in the end. But now Casper Juncker finding another BMW wants to take the place, and that is going to be Anna Thomas, who's only within 2 tenths. They come down in towards turn number 2. Onto the brakes they go for Andretti, and the Porsche driver's been in this situation before. He's seen it enough now, and I think at this point Casper Juncker's thinking, okay, it's deja vu time, but the difference is this time we haven't got any pit stops left to let a BMW get past us. So therefore, we know how to position this car. We've done it plenty of times. What is Thomas going to do different, however, is the question. And well, on the immediate exit of turn 4, that's a really good exit. Looking up the inside of turn 5, does Thomas try and go for it? No, tries to fake out a pass there by staying tighter to the corner and trying to get Casper Juncker to think that something's coming. But indeed, nothing was coming in the end other than what was a big set of downshifts there for the BMW MA. And as Juncker makes his way up the hill, up the Rojo straight, well, right now keeping his head down here in towards the Corkscrew. You can see Thomas getting close once again onto the concertina effect. That is Azash closing as well. So Sergei Garcia Azash now part of this freeway battle for P3. And that's one thing that Juncker can try to do. He can try to back Thomas into Azash and then just try and run away when the 2 BMW drivers trip over each other if they do. But then again, if you're Sergei Garcia Azash, do you really want to get too involved in this battle? Not right now, potentially, given the fact you must note that these 2 drivers are faster than you. If you've been watching how the gap has expanded and contracted over the race distance, that's what some drivers will do. And I think he will be of the mindset that, in fact, later on, he might be able to pick up the place. So these 2 take a lot of life out of each other through fighting. But meanwhile, we've had that happen. Into the pit lane has come Jordan Shamblin. And, well, this is looking to be another pit stop. Now, is it going to be a pit stop for a quick splash and dash of fuel? Did he underfuel the car? Because if so, that is going to be a bit of heartbreak for the Porsche driver, who's doing fantastically well. The only other thing I can imagine is that some sort of instance potentially happened. The car's parked up, so I think it is going to be fuel, and well, a frustrating moment in the race. We've also got coming into the pits, one is Jose Manuel Cazon. He's on in as well in the number 3, albeit with his race in an early pit stop. I suspected it's become a 2-stop race for him. Shamblin's left the pit lane with the last little bit of fuel in the car, but here comes Sachs at the inside of Cardoso to make the move for what is their P8. The Ford driver making that move at long last. He's been chasing it for some time and finally finds it, and well, he's gained 2 more places, given the pit stops are ongoing as well, so he'll be happy with that. Now he's firmly inside the top 10, but I do wonder whether any other drivers are potentially underfueled here, and whether that could become a big factor towards the end. Could we see some dire fuel saving from some drivers? Could we see a last minute splash and dash of fuel for somebody in our top 5? Where so that'll be heartbreak for them, but that'll completely turn this race on its head. And well, as they come onwards here, we've now only got 6 minutes to go. Your race leader is not on screen. They're a long way out the road. They're 20.5 seconds up the road is Matt Kendall. But what you're seeing here is the battle for P2, the highest placed battle on this circuit, and Thomas right now, Anna Thomas in what is the Golf liveried BMW, trying to hunt down and take P2 over Casper Juncker in the black Porsche. Right now, this 911 driver, I think he's had his fill of bearish Mutterwerken badges for a day. In fact, he has been absolutely swarmed by them. But as they come out of turn 3 and in towards 4, well, meanwhile, for Sergei Garcia-Alzage already backing off the pace a little bit as we ride on board. And, well, you'll notice here in the fact that over the last couple of laps, this gap, what was dropping down, it was 8 tenths off of the back of Anna Thomas. It's now actually opened back up to 1.2 seconds. And I imagine Alzage has decided, look, I don't want to be a part of this right now. There's no need for me to be. Instead, I'm going to back off. But meanwhile, speaking of not backing off, that was a mistake there from Juncker in the distance. And as they head in towards the corkscrew, that's the mistake. That's going to open up the door for Anna Thomas to simply sail on through. And in the end, well, it goes a completely different way compared to the battle between Juncker and Boyer. And just a small run wide at turn number 6 that we caught in the distance from the onboard of Alzage, in the end has enabled Anna Thomas just to sail right up the inside into the corkscrew and has made this a much more straightforward battle than I think Casper Juncker wanted it to be. I think he had it all laid out, and in the end, well, the best laid plans of mice and men have truly gone astray. But as I head up towards turn number 1, well, right now, Thomas will look to break away 9 to Drew Boyer. It is 12.3 seconds, so I think that is the gap that's going to be a bridge too far to close. Then again, Casper Junker's going to be looking in the rearview mirrors and thinking, okay, now I've got another BMW queuing up. How many of you exactly are there? And well, as they come out to Andretti, well, Thomas is not breaking away too quickly either, so could this be a resurgent battle? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but what we will quickly do is take a look back at how the move was made. And well, this was coming out of the corner, and it was a slow run. It wasn't a run wide, it was just a poor exit out of turn 6 for Juncker. And in the end, Anna Thomas just sailing up the inside. They're getting a perfect run by comparison, and more intriguing there, the difference. And I think Juncker perhaps just found a small wobble on corner exit and perhaps hesitating there. And to be fair, given how hard he's had to work, I wouldn't be surprised if he is struggling for rear tyre temperature at the moment, and perhaps that rear right just almost on the verge of letting go as he comes over the crest into that braking zone for the corkscrew this time. But now you can see Alzage right there and looking to go on the offensive as we ride aboard the dashboard of the P5 driver as he roars his way up through the left hand and gets a much better run there coming from Rain. He thinks about it into turn 10. Now, it's not somewhere you normally go for a move unless the driver in front of you has opened the door up entirely, but into the bits goes Juncker. So Juncker hasn't got enough fuel because he wouldn't be coming in otherwise unless he's picked up a drive-through, but I haven't seen that many off tracks or what is 1Xs as they're referred to in the business. But as he comes on down the pit lane, that is a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure, and Casper Juncker has not got enough fuel in order to get the job done. But surely that's got to mean that some other drivers now have got to be thinking about the fuel to go in. Does that mean Sam Benson and Jonathan Palferman are now battling for P5? They're not battling for P6 anymore, so this is a late twist in the tail, and I wonder if there's any more chapters in this story that we're suddenly going to discover, because they come out of turn number 2. Well, is anybody else just limping around out there trying to get the car to sip fuel? We'll have to wait and see, because as Sam Benson continues to chase after Palferman, where it would be an all BMW top 5 if Benson was able to find this position off of Palferman, but otherwise Palferman's going to be the fly in the ointment and upset what would be a BMW dominance here at Laguna Seca today. 3 minutes still left on the clock. There's still opportunities to go racing, but will there be some more unexpected second pit stops before this is done? Well, if so, it's going to be very late in the day, given our race leader who we look to here. This is Kendall, your race leader. He's 19 seconds ahead. He has just passed a load of traffic, to be fair, so that has bitten into a bit of his time, coming in towards turns 1, 2 and 3. But Kendall's found his way clear of the traffic now. Drew Boyer was half a second faster on that previous lap. I think that might have been aided a little bit by traffic, but we were trying to get some statistics on that where we can and see it when we get any more data. But that gap has dropped slightly, and well, could that be an indication of perhaps even our race leader is a little bit low on fuel? Well, we'll have to see, because he's got 2 minutes left on the clock, so he'll do this lap plus 1 more if my maths is correct based on where he is on circuit as he makes that turn number 6. We come back meanwhile to the battle for P5, and well, these two absolutely burning the fuel like nobody's business, as that is a look around the outside by Benson versus Palferman as they come into the left-hander of Andretti. Well, Palferman decides not to react to it, just simply parks the car in apex and says, okay, and what are you exactly going to do? And Benson says, I can't do anything other than tuck back in, because they make the way through 3 and 4. Well, Palferman knows that Porsche has got the right line. If he can plant the car on the middle of the road or on the exact racing line, he's going to be safe in those opening corners at least, and therefore Benson now's got to think about a run out of turn 5, alternatively come out the corkscrew to complete the lap and perhaps do it into the final corner. But Palferman's going to have something to say about that, given the fact he's had a bit of exposure all the way over the race distance of battling with BMWs, particularly with Anna Thomas and also Alzage earlier on, as they come up towards what is turns 8 and 9. All coming on through first to the Corkscrew turns 8A and 8B, and they're just getting it absolutely stopped on a dime as your race leader. I don't think it's in fact gone on to the final lap. I think we will be squeezing a 36th lap in, given we've got 50 seconds left and our race leader is already at turn number 5. This is going to be very close to see if we get a 36th lap, but if we do, I think that might be unexpected for some drivers here, given that Kendall has had clear running for most of the race, minus traffic and having to do a pit stop. Well, if so, Kendall may, and I say may, it's going to be very close. He's 30 seconds out right now, and he's about 30 seconds left on this lap. We may squeeze in a 35th lap, and if we do, well, that is potentially going to throw the strategy calculators out the window for some drivers. But let's come back to your race leader then. Here he comes, 15 seconds left on the clock. It is going to be tantalizingly tight, and he's got what is the final corner here, a little bit of traffic in front of him. In fact, it will be the checker flag. It's called, ladies and gentlemen, and in a dominant drive today, well, from Road Atlanta to Laguna Seca, it's all gone his way, and Matt Kendall takes victory here at Laguna Seca in the top split, and well, by an absolutely brilliant margin of 20 seconds in a faultless race. But as he comes to a halt down towards turn number 2, where it's going to be a BMW 1, it's going to be a BMW 2, because Drew Boyer, who made his way into P2 on strategy, he's made it a deserved runner-up spot there in the number 5, and it will then be a further 11 seconds back to Anna Thomas, who fought their way all the way from P14 to finish on the podium P3. What a drive from Thomas, and well, we've got a bit more time to go before it'll then be Sergey Garcia-Alsace P4. It's 4 BMWs in the top 4, but then the fly in the ointment is going to be Jonathan Palfreman, who holds on in the Porsche 911 to take P5 there, having started P10. What a solid and determined drive. Sam Benson finishes just behind him P6, and then it will be Casper Juncker with a heartbreaking race with that misfueling, seeing him have to make a second stop and finish P7. We've still got a couple of drivers out there on racing laps, or particularly on the lead lap, and here are your final 2 finishers. They begin to make the way towards the final corner, and the headlights are on. The sun is gradually setting in California, and so is the racing as they come into turn 11. Well, Ricardo M. Cardoso in the very colourful livery gets a very colourful exit there out of turn 11, but it will still be enough to enable him to finish P8 ahead of Adam Sachs, and they will complete your lead lap finishers. Jordan Shamblin complete the top 10 a lap down, and Tom Canning best the rest P11. But goodness me, what a race, ladies and gentlemen. That was absolutely incredible. Laguna Seca may not offer as many overtaking opportunities or absolutely do or die moments as some of the other circuits we've seen over the course of this season so far, but we got to see some brilliant battles both on circuit and on strategy, and we also got to see the big question of which of our non-BMW drivers could keep the BMW tied at bay, and the answer was only one today could prevent BMW locking out the top 5, and that was Jonathan Palfreman, and doing so just fending off Sam Benson right at the end. As our drivers cool down and make the way into the pit lane, well, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are, ladies and gentlemen. For the 1900 GMT or UTC top split on Friday the 14th of February, indeed, it may be Valentine's Day, and we're showing our love to the GTE Sprint Series by CONSPIT on iRacing, and for the 2025 Season 1 Week 9 top split broadcast, Matt Kendall delivering the goods right at the front of the field with an absolutely clinical performance, taking victory by 20 seconds. It was P2 to Drew Boyer, who spent the majority of the race, or at least the first half of the race, battling hard with Casper Juncker, and in the end having to get into P2 on strategy, but then never looking back. And third place to Anna Thomas, who had a very different race in the top 2, having to fight their way through from a P14 start, but in the end taking P3, and magic does happen, and Anna Thomas demonstrating that. Sergey Garcia-Alsace, P4 there, having started P3, just losing the 1 place, but Alsace will be happy with that, given he came into this one being one of the lowest rated drivers in the lobby, but he's definitely put in a high rated performance, and Jonathan Palfreman completing at the top 5 there in the Porsche 911, just holding on for that top 5 finish ahead of Sam Benson. It was P7 to Casper Juncker, the second of our Porsche drivers inside the top 10, and he'll be absolutely gutted in 9 that it could have been a podium today, or at least a top 5 if it weren't for a little bit of misfueling in the pit stop. And then we did see Ricardo M. Cardoso P8 in the was only one of 2 Corvette C8Rs, and will in the end gradually making his way up the ranks into P8, but in a very middling race. The same could be said for Adam Sachs, our sole Ford GT on the grid, albeit enjoying some great battles out there and taking a P9 finish, and then Jordan Chamberlain completing at the top 10, and what a challenging race day for the Porsche driver. It didn't quite work out, but still plenty more weeks to go. P11, it was Tom Canning, the sole Ferrari driver, who had a great start to the race, but in the end a very early pit stop, and I get the feeling accidentally putting a whole new set of tyres on the car meant that he fell out of the top 5, and it would have been great to see where he could have factored into that top 5 battle. And then it was a P12 to Tom van der Berg ahead of Jose Manuel Cazon, and then we do see Patrick Gilmore, Gorkan Avicii and Pablo Padinez completing your finishers, albeit it was a lap down from P10 all the way through to P16. We're 8 laps down in fact for Gorkan Avicii in P15, and Pablo Padinez finishing 13 laps down. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen, no doubt about it. And it was BMW dominance today, as we do say hello there to Sky Blue in the YouTube chat, who is Anna Thomas there, and good evening to you, Anna. I hope you're doing well and well done on the race there. And we also say hello there to Jonathan P, or Cactus Lord, in the YouTube chat, and that will be none other than what would be, oh, excuse me, while drivers there racing today. So it's great to see you all tuning in as well and jumping in right at the end. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we must now turn our attentions to what lies in wait in a week's time, because we close the doors here on Laguna Seca. There's still a couple more days of racing here over the weekend and on Monday, but we've done our top split broadcast here for this week, and it does mean next time we continue the journey to week number 10, where we make way to Italy for the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, but you all know and love it and refer to it as the Imola circuit, and that will be broadcasted live from circuit side in the top split in our regular 1900 hours GMT or UTC slot on Friday the 21st of February 2025. Laguna Seca today was all about the brilliance of the BMW, and it was all about the technical mastery of the corners. But at Imola, it's going to be a contradiction. Fast straights, tight chicanes, a couple of hairpins, and plenty of battles under braking. But who will carry on and reign supreme in Italy? We'll tune in a week's time to find out. But until then, we have been at the official iRacing GTE Sprint Series by CONSPIT. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.